Yo, what's up, guys? Um, so first off, I'd like to say I made a video yesterday for this guy named James. He sent me a link to a video for Kid Galahad. The kid is straight fire. You know, he's super young, super talented, and I think I go over 2 rounds of his fight. But as soon as I posted the video up, like usually I get a couple minutes like leeway. It wound up getting a copyright strike and taken down. I'm fighting it right now because those motherfuckers just be fucking with me. But I'm putting the video back up. I'm hoping that it gets up. Maybe you guys can watch it. But in the video, you know, I talk about how, you know, he's a pretty good fighter, and you know, this and that. He's got excellent defense, great control. He doesn't set his punches up super well, you know, but I'm hoping the video will come back up. He's got a couple tricks that I like. Very clever. He's a pretty good fighter, you know. But today we're going to be looking at Julius Indongo versus Ricky Burns in preparation for his fight against Terence Crawford. And I haven't actually seen this fight. I haven't seen any of these rounds. And this one's going to kind of be like, I don't want to say like like we're just going to watch the fight. We're going to break it down. We're going to talk about stuff. And we're going to talk about it like in terms of like Crawford style, you know. I'm going to do a breakdown of the Crawford versus Felix Diaz fight. And man, before Crawford fought Felix Diaz, and I know like you know, fighting orthodox versus a right-handed fighter, you know, or versus a southpaw, fighters are better at controlling their opponents. They use better techniques. They understand positioning better. But Crawford looked fucking phenomenal in his fight against Felix Diaz. I don't think I've seen the whole fight. I've seen like a bunch of like highlight clips, and I saw a couple of the little techniques that he uses in that fight, and man, he looked so good. And before that fight, I kind of thought of Crawford as like, you know, physically gifted, you know, but boxing like ordinary, you know, like a little bit better than, you know, like a Keith Thurman, you know, a little craftier, you know, like C plus, you know, like a pretty good C plus fighter. But after that Felix Diaz fight, if he's able to incorporate some of that stuff, like in this fight against Julius Indongo, you know, he's gonna have a good fight against him. I think he's gonna do well against Julius Indongo. But we're gonna look at the film of this guy and see what he can do. There's a guy, I fucking can't remember your name. You were asking me to do some videos on specific craft and stuff, you know, for people setting up their punches, because you're talking about like waiting for people to get out of position before you throw punches. I was thinking about, and I talk about this a little bit in the Kid Galahad breakdown. I'm not sure if anybody's ever going to get to see it, but if anybody's interested in me doing some like actual boxing videos, like getting behind the camera and, you know, with one of my friends and like showing him some boxing techniques and talking boxing theory, and showing techniques on how to set your punches up, and kind of going in depth on that kind of stuff. I'd love to do that. I've kind of been thinking about wanting to be a boxing coach, and this would be like, you know, a short step to it, and it'd be really fun and interesting if people were interested. So let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in seeing that stuff. You guys also get to put a face to the name or to the voice. I know I sound like a little kid and shit. Shit, I might fucking look like a little kid too, man. I don't know. But anyway, we're going to check this Julius Indongo out, see what kind of stuff he's got going on, and what kind of things he might be able to do against TC. So starting off right off the bat, popping the jab out there, you know, just putting it in his front of his face, right? You know, obviously, like that jab right there, he's not going to land that, right? He's too far away, but he's popping it out there and making his opponent think that that Indongo's going to lead, right? You know, getting the mind game going, you know, controlling the distance, and, you know, getting his opponent to keep his hands at home. And what does he do immediately? Shows him the jab again, right? That he just showed him, right? And then goes for a body shot. You know, 5 seconds into the fight, they haven't even shown the round timer yet, and he's already landed a body shot that he's, you know, set up pretty decently. You know, he's got the kind of he's got kind of an advantage, being that he's southpaw in that regard, that it's a little easier to land that body shot than if you were right-handed. But, you know, setting like a little bit of a trap, right? Making his opponent see the jab, right? react to the jab or cover up from the jab and shoot a body shot. Pretty standard boxing, and like a decent way to set up his offense. And then right into, interestingly enough, flashing the jab again and then exploding out of his guard and throwing a hook. An interesting like little trap as well. The more interesting part about it is that he hasn't actually tried to land any jabs yet, right? He touches, or not touches glove, but just flashes the jab, throws it, and it might get blocked a little bit. You can see Burns' forearm touch Indongo's forearm, before the punch lands. So it's going to take away a lot of the power. But what was I going to say? But, not really touching him with the jab first, right? Not really, I don't want to say like, he's not wary of the jab yet, even though it's been flashed to him a few times. But Indongo doing a pretty decent job of, 10 seconds into the fight, of using his lead hand to kind of keep the guy on his toes so he can try to land some shots, And interesting, like if you look at his punch technique when he lets this right hand go, it doesn't look like there's any power in that shot. Like if we're talking like purely boxing technique standpoint, right? He wails in with that hook. And interesting, like if you notice, and talking about boxing technique and the way that you set up your punches, and I think this is applicable in this instance. Most fighters that I do breakdowns of have phenomenal technique. Even Floyd Mayweather, when he's really landing some good shots, he turns his hips well. He turns his hips well when he misses a shot so he can control his opponent. But if you notice right here, it's really difficult when you lunge in with a shot like this and your arm is completely stretched out to get your hip into it, right? Because the way that the angle is going to be on the punch, you're not landing with your landing knuckles and you're not able to get your hips into it. But he has to really thrust his hips in to try and get power into his right hand. But it doesn't look like there's any power in it because he's not able to turn his hook or turn his hips into his hook. But I'm gonna try to focus not so much on technique, But I wanna point that out because I saw some highlights of this fight and was like, oh wow, he gets kind of wild with his shots sometimes. But I think we're gonna do like 3 or 4 rounds. Oh man, look at he comes out so aggressive. Ricky Burns, and if we're talking about like what Ricky Burns is doing, from a boxing standpoint, getting better at boxing, you need to contest that left hand, right? And that's what's allowing Indongo to set these punches up, right, so easily, is because he's able to pop it out there, not land it, and get his opponent to shell up, right? And then once he's shelled up, i.e. out of position, right, he's not in a position really to counterpunch or to land his own offense, Indongo is able to just open up and throw his own punches. As you see, boom, and then comes around. Not a lot of power in that shot, kind of a winging shot, like an arm punch. I still wouldn't let that man hit me in the face with it, right? But that's not the point, right? Let's look at his punch technique when he does that too. Very stretched out. I like that he gets all of his weight on his front leg, right? That'll allow him to just ease into the power. Like very Golovkin-esque, right? A lot of people think that you need to be driving your feet into the ground to turn and get them. But what you really want to be doing is just turning your hips, and allowing your body to fluidly do it while giving your hips the ability to transfer your weight. And I think he does a pretty decent job of that in that punch, even though it's kind of winging and he's not landing with his knuckles. But very active and very aggressive. Flashes that jab and just completely wrecks his guard. That guy, Ricky Burns, he gets out of range of it. Maybe he's picked up on the range of it, and he's not able to land a shot on him right there. But look at how Ricky Burns brings both of his hands out like that. Cardinal sin of boxing. You never, ever, ever want to be doing that. But we're not focusing on Ricky Burns. That's not important, right? He misses his counter. But what we do want to focus on is after Indongo throws that shot and he misses wildly, he doesn't control him at all, right? He doesn't put his forearm onto Ricky Burns, right? He doesn't move his right hand or his left hand back onto Ricky Burns after missing the shot and try to pivot out. And what he would want to be doing right here, so you see right here where his hips are, we'll say that's like kind of north-south, and they turn, right? And he gets all his weight on his right leg, and now his hips are kind of like east-west, right? Pointing towards the referee. What he would want to do is wing his left arm out, basically like, I don't want to say like a back fist into dude's face, right? But he wants to counterbalance and bring his arm back, control Ricky Burns, and then also pivot his hips so they would be back in this position, right? So they go from here, and then he would pivot them out, and he would shoot out to his right. But he kind of stays there and doesn't control him, and allows there to be an opportunity for counter punches. And that's something that Terence Crawford is very good at. And I think that he'd be able to exploit a little bit of what Indongo's doing here. Although Indongo's showing really good lead hand control, he's not really being contested in that aspect either. But boom, looks like kind of like a headbutt right there. But what Indongo should be doing right here, right? Talking like setting up your punches wise, right? As soon as he sees that that Ricky Burns is countering him right there, I guess he kind of does. He goes for a body shot right there. So not too bad, but he doesn't want to be setting out the extra jab, right? It looks like it kind of caught him off guard, and Ricky Burns timed him really well because he's, obviously he's a professional fighter himself, and he's getting used to the rhythm that Indongo is using to set up his punches with that lead hand, and he's able to kind of counter him. Neither one of them really land. Well, Indongo lands his body shot, but not before they're like smash their heads together. It looks like, but the point that I'm trying to make in that instance is that, oh motherfucker, fuck you, is that Indongo's not really probing with this hand, right? Oh man, that is a nasty looking headbutt. Even though it's hard to tell, We'll have to look at another instance. It looks like he kind of gets caught off guard. He does do a good job of moving his head. Maybe that is what it is. Maybe it is probing, and this is all intentional, and he just controls his face with that forearm and then lands the body shot. Maybe he's doing better than I thought he is, But it looks a little... Ooh, okay. So controlling him, and then that's exactly what I thought was going to happen in the last exchange. Indongo has the same rhythm, and Ricky Burns kind of times him. And I'm not sure if he lands the shot. Let's see. It looks like he kind of catches it, and some of it kind of gets through, But while he's using the lead hand to control his opponent, he's not doing anything with the control that he has, right? And what I mean by that, in terms of like probing, right? The idea behind probing is to get your opponent out of position. And if they refuse to move out of position, then inherently they're out of position for your jab, so you can land a shot because they're not regarding it, right? But what he does here, and he does kind of get timed really well, and I think that's a product of him stepping with his jab. If you see him here, and then he steps with the jab, and Ricky Burns is able to catch him. Which makes it a little more difficult to probe with your jab when you're stepping in, because you're the one basically going first. But when you're probing with your lead hand, you want to make your opponent go first. So like I was saying, so think about it like this. If Indongo was probing with his lead hand and it was a probe, you just think about it as Indongo standing still, and then Ricky Burns just exploding out of his guard with that right hand, and then Indongo is able to respond however he wants, right? That's how like a probe works. You get your opponent to go first by using small movements that don't cause you to commit any of your any energy, any power, but more importantly your hips, right? They don't cause your hips to move so that you can fire at either punch. You stay on balance, and Indongo doesn't really do that right here, in spite of the fact that he's the one with the lead hand control, right? He's the one controlling the distance. Again, interesting boxing style, in and out, right? Flashes the jab and then goes for the body shot. So far he's done that, I think, 3 times. Interesting why he would do that. I think he thinks that he had the ring cut off right there. You know, I mean, I guess he almost did. But also, well, I guess we can look back at it and kind of say, oh, you know, Ricky Burns is not exactly in punching position, so it's kind of a free roll of a punch. But yeah, Ricky Burns not really looking to fight too much. Interesting. Not bad, you know, kind of like Errol Spence-esque, even though his tools are not as sharp as Errol Spence. Double lead hand, take lead foot dominance. And I'm not sure why he throws the other one, but, you know, again, tools not nearly as sharp as Errol Spence, but kind of like fighting in a similar manner, right? Lead hand dominance. And then kind of like baiting the right hand here. You know, I think his reach is what saved him there, is that Ricky Burns hasn't figured out his reach yet. But kind of setting a trap now, it looks like. You know, that's the second time he's tried to counter the right hand with the uppercut. And I'm not exactly sure why he thinks that Ricky Burns is going to be there for the uppercut after the right hand. Maybe he's seen it on tape. Maybe he's studied him fighting other southpaws, and usually he'll lean in or he'll try to do something else. But maybe he sees something that we don't in the ring either. Or maybe it's just part of his craft, right? Part of his countering. But again, you know, flashes that lead hand, takes a step forward, and then throws the body shot. You know, so far a very, very consistent part of his arsenal for landing punches, right? The most consistent so far. And that's what you call craft, right? It's part of the way that he'll probably goes about landing punches against all fighters. Not bad, you know, good head movement right there. I wonder if Ricky Burns was trying to time him coming in too. But Ricky Burns basically does the same exact motion, you know, a throwaway jab, right? Throwaway jab and then explode into a right hand. But he doesn't go for the body, he goes for the head and doesn't have nearly the same success that Indongo is having. Again, same style of offense. And Ricky Burns, you know, kind of giving it away. You know, one of the interesting things when you have like this high guard is that you don't have any way to block the body shots. So whether or not this is because of how Ricky Burns is defending himself, or it's always part of his offense, right? And that's one interesting thing is because he finds this technique so useful during the course of this fight, maybe he does turn it into craft and decides to use it in later fights, right? So, like very Floyd Mayweather, like, you know, I think that Mayweather had a lot of game plans that he had for fighting people that kind of stuck with him, that he kind of kept, and he would use those tactics against other fighters, specifically, like one that like when he developed a game plan that he fought with against not Castillo. How do I forget that? Diego Corrales. And he kind of kept that game plan with him throughout his whole career. You know, not a lot of fighters were able to fight it off. You know, the setting up his punches and not being wild with his shots, and exploding out with his jabs and stuff, and going to the body to bring the hands low, and then later on in the fight going up high after he conditions his opponent, right? That's craft, you know. So this might be a game plan specifically for this fight, but it might also be something that he uses in his subsequent fights because it works so well. Okay, so steps in with the jab. And very interesting, right? Why he's stepping in the first place. Misses his counter, but he's got such a long reach. You know, I wouldn't think that a fighter that size, and he doesn't step out immediately either, which is also really interesting. But he's able to establish lead foot dominance here. Does Burns land a shot? Yeah, Burns lands a body shot that kind of sends him off balance. But it's interesting that he has to get so close for some reason to land a shot when he has the... actually, we can check it right here, right? So it looks like he could easily land a shot on him without stretching himself out, while Ricky Burns is stretched out completely. So it looks like he has like a massive reach advantage, but not really using it super well. And I think that might be a product of him, like I said earlier, of him not having the best mechanical skills, the best tools, right? Another headbutt. And I think that's Ricky Burns' fault. Kind of leads in with his head. Very ugly. Let's see it again. Yeah, it's so weird because both of their heads are over their knee, right? Which is their space, basically. I don't know. I would fault Ricky Burns more than Indongo in that case. Stepping with the jab. And that's really interesting. You know, that might be something that Crawford is able to really take advantage of. Crawford has really good timing. And Indongo seems like I don't want to say a rhythmed fighter, but Ricky Burns was able to kind of pick up on the rhythm really quickly. Step with the jab. Oh, does he throw that headshot? Oh, he throws one to the head now instead. Interesting, right? So you go to the body a bunch of times. You make your opponent think you're going to go to the body. And I didn't see Ricky Burns dipping below like the belt, you know, or like dipping down low to get away from the body shots. So I'm curious as to why Indongo would be throwing headshots already. But again, same move, right? Very simple. Flashes the jab. So flashes the jab and then flashes it again, occupies his opponent's lead hand, right? And that's pretty interesting, right? I didn't notice that at first. I'm not sure if he does it on the previous ones, but he touches his glove first and then goes for the body shot. And his opponent, you know, turns into it. And maybe now he's starting to see that he might be able to land a headshot. Dude. Ricky Burns, man, what are you even doing? Are you a professional fighter or what, man? I feel like I could kick your ass. I'm just kidding, bro. Don't fuck me up, man. Anyway. Gets him on the ropes, you know, and he's not in position to defend himself, right? Looks like he eats a pretty big shot and then another shot to the body. Fucking another big body shot. You know, and interesting too. I'm not the biggest fan of combination punching, personally. You know, I like Kid Galahad, you know, in the video, if you guys ever get to see it, if it ever comes off. I like his style of punching combination. You know, after nearly every single goddamn punch that kid threw, he would control his opponent's head and then throw another punch, control them, throw another punch, control them. And I like that. You know, I like that style. You know, I like the Golovkin style where he'll go boom, boom, and then control and pivot and move. I like Vasily Lomachenko's where he waits for you to put yourself out of position. And before that, he's just throwing pity-patter punches. And then as soon as you commit to a shot, he'll counter you 2 or 3 times. Real quick shots and then change angles. But, you know, Indongo right here lands that big shot, doesn't control Ricky Burns, right? Throws a body shot, throws another head shot, and he's just, you know, not reckless and wild, right? Throws another shot, not controlling him, landing another shot, but he's open for counters, you know? And that's what you when you're like using a catch and counter style, and I'm not saying that Ricky Burns does, obviously, like he didn't catch and counter shit in there, but I think that Crawford has a little bit of catch and counter style, and when you punch in combination like that, Crawford being a pretty decent counter puncher, as you saw like when he fought Yuriorkis Gamboa, and my fucking god, I loved that fight. That was just, people thought that was going to be an easy fucking fight for Crawford too, and to be honest, I thought that Gamboa was going to fucking knock him out. I thought he was going to win the fight. I think Gamboa's kind of like our generation's Zab Judah now. You know, he kind of got knocked out in his last fight. He has no control over his opponents. Anyway, we're not talking about him. But anyway. Punching like that, you know, being wide open, I think it's going to present a lot of problems for Indongo, and I don't think he's going to be able to punch in combination like that against Crawford. Not because of movement, not because of, you know, speed or power, but just because Crawford's a better counterpuncher than that. And Crawford likes to make you pay for every mistake. You know, he's a fighter's fighter. I'll quote one of those clowns whose video I was watching. You know what makes him great? It's the dog in him. It's because he's just got that dog. He's just a great fighter. Most people don't know shit about the sweet science. And he's just a dog. As if that's like a fucking sweet science candidate, you know, having dog in you. But in that respect, I do think that Indongo is going to have a hard time punching in combination against Terence Crawford, just because Crawford is so accurate. And he has great reach himself. And it doesn't look like Indongo is using his reach to the best of his ability. Not bad right there. Interesting. Baiting the counter. Super easy to slip under that. But interestingly, he knows that the right hand is coming after. And I can't tell if it lands on the chin or if it just hits him in the body, but he just walks right into that right hand. What did Indongo even try to counter with? I'm not sure. I think he was trying to counter with the right uppercut or the left uppercut again. Catching the right hand this time. I think we'll do one more round after this. And I think I'll do it a little bit quicker. I mean, 26 minutes for one fucking round, man. I talk a lot, you guys. My bad, yo. Again, you know, same thing. And interestingly, right, doesn't go to the body with this one and it gets blocked. I don't think any of it gets through, but the same style of setting up his punch. Same style right there again. You know, Ricky Burns not having, you know, any real answer for it, so I guess he doesn't really have to change it. Ooh, and then I wonder... Man, I wish that there was a different angle of this. Okay. So it looks like Ricky Burns is the one that's leading right there. And catches him with a good right hand. You know, so far Indongo is showing that, you know, his defense is not up to snuff. You know, he doesn't control his opponent. He doesn't have a good static defense. So far he's walked into 2 right hands. So far not super difficult to hit him. So far he's kind of got like a 0 for defense. The best offense is a good defense in his book. Interesting. Gets all the way out of the way of that. But shoots back, you know, pretty far. You know, and doesn't, interestingly enough, you know, someone who has like an in and out style, after he jumps back, he doesn't jump back in to reclose that distance. Same tired offense. A fighter as good as Crawford is going to be able to pick that apart and counter over the top. Very similar to what I thought that Kell Brook would do to Errol Spence. And if you look at... Whoops. Yeah, I think that Crawford is going to be able to counter him and take away that style of offense pretty well. He did land a good body shot right there, but Ricky Burns, like, think about this. Like, you have this big guy in front of you, and so far the only way he's really landed punches were when you were on the ropes, right? He landed a couple good shots. And then he jumps in, flashes his right hand at you, and then throws a left hand to your body, right? Or in this case, he throws one to the head, you know? Don't you think after the first 2 times you're going to make some kind of adjustment or think about, oh, he's going to be going to the body after he flashes that jab and you want to throw a counter or you want to do something, right? You know, so Ricky Burns not showing that, like, he's really, I don't know, I don't want to say not present in the fight, but but maybe not as, you know, a super high boxing IQ. Let's see if there are any highlights. Nope. Wow, that timer went by really quick. Let's see. Interesting. I wonder why he's doing that. So he jumps in with his jab, right? And then takes a step back, but he moves to his left, right? Which is kind of moving into Ricky Burns' power hand, right? And I wonder why he's doing that. You know, is he trying to set up a counter so that Ricky Burns will try to counter him moving off of the jab so that he can counter that counter by like walking into the shot? You know what I mean? So he starts here, right? Facing that one ring or that one rope, and then ends facing another rope, right? Kind of, you know. But he kind of moves into Ricky Burns' right hand, or would be. But I wonder if he's doing that on purpose to set up his own straight left. And again, you know, Indongo not really having to work very hard to set up his shot. Shoots that jab at his glove, and then raises his glove, and then flashes the left hand, and then goes to the body. Again, you know, not working too hard. Being active, landing, that's all you really want to ask from a fighter, is that they're scoring punches, they're winning the rounds. Okay, so all right, let's look at his feet. So he's here, and Ricky Burns gives the same kind of offense that he's been giving. Indongo picks up on it and is able to block the shot. And Indongo jumps in with that sweeping hook. You know, not the greatest counter. And I wonder why he would go with a hook off of the right hand anyway. Doesn't seem to make sense. Maybe like an uppercut, you know. Just interesting. But I think he should have gone with a left hand. And again, pressing forward with the same technique. You know, not really setting his punches up anymore. You know, there's no surprise in it. Burns might be eating a few more body shots, but, you know, because it's predictable, you know, not really changing the rhythm at all. Not too bad. Sees him come in, step with the jab. Catches him with the hook, you know. I wonder how I feel about that. I mean, barely out of range of that right hand. Barely. But I wonder why he doesn't catch the punch first. Let's take a look at his hips, right? So he kind of just wings the shot. And it's a decent landed shot. I'd be curious to know how much damage it does, you know, by listening to the sound, you know. But if he caught the right hand first, you know, and turned his hips a little bit, he could get a little more torque in the counter. And that's just kind of nitpicking a little bit on his technique. I like that he's very active. It means that at the very least, the Crawford fight is going to be very entertaining. Interesting. So it's interesting because, like, we've seen Ricky Burns not really have any follow-up after his right hand a few times, right? More worried from the counter. And not bad fight there. So if you look at Ricky Burns, after he throws that right hand, he steps off to his side, right, to change angle. Now puts him out of danger for the most part. But Indongo's able to see it coming so quick. I wonder why he doesn't take a smaller step back and then a step back inside right after. Because he's able to pick up on the lead right hand so easily. You know, Ricky Burns gives him that little shuffle forward, takes lead foot dominance, but Indongo doesn't really capitalize. Not that he's fighting bad, right? And I'm not trying to be too harsh, right? But figuring out like whether he's going to be able to counter or use counters in his arsenal and how he lands punches, or even if he's setting up for counters, you know, it's just important when you're doing film study on a fighter to kind of try to, you know, get in their head, figure out what they're trying to do. There you go, going back to the lead hand. And I like that right there. Boom. Going back to the lead hand. Oh, man. And even though he's using it, cardinal sin, gets both of his hands away from his face and then tries to come up with that uppercut again. Again, not really controlling his opponent either. You know, he's using that lead hand, but so far I think the last few times that he's kind of had it out there, Ricky Burns has been the one to kind of capitalize on it, right? While Indongo is busy controlling the distance, right? Indongo's not doing anything with the control that he has, and he kind of just allows Ricky Burns to explode out of his guard, right? Like, just look at Ricky Burns, right? Forget Indongo's even there, right? Just looking at him, takes that little step forward and throws a body shot, right? No setup, right? You know, he flashes the jab a little bit, but we've seen him do that like 3, 4, 5, 6 times now, and we know what it is. But the interesting thing is if this was a better trap from Indongo, right? And I'm not sure what Indongo's trying to get Ricky Burns to do at the moment either, right? There's like, that's fair to say, right? But it's definitely not probing with the lead hand, right? He's definitely not trying to get him out of position, but I'm not sure exactly what he's doing because he kind of just allows Ricky Burns to do whatever he wants, right? He has his lead hand in front of him, and when he goes to make a shot, he doesn't counter him. And that's not bad. See, this is kind of more what I'm talking about, right? Takes a step back, and then a little bit, like a small step forward to try and land a counter. You know, maybe he's getting the timing and he's figuring it out. Maybe in the later rounds he'll have a little bit better of some counters. Oh, beautiful timing from Ricky Burns. And this is going to give him fits against Crawford because Crawford is going to be way better at this. And to be honest, Ricky Burns probably didn't even think that was going to be a real punch. You know, he probably thought that Indongo was going to try to leap forward and then land a straight left hand to the body or to the face, and he just counters and times him so well. And that's one of the dangers of not really of using those like very, you know, low level feints. You know, noticed in the first few minutes of the fight they worked really well, right? You're skittish, you're nervous, you're in the quote unquote feeling out process, right? But now all of a sudden Ricky Burns is looking and finding ways to kind of take that away. Lands a great punch right there. Let's see if Indongo makes any adjustments. So they're interesting. Even though he's still controlling the distance, right? As soon as Ricky Burns does his own tired setup for a punch, Indongo doesn't use the lead hand, the control that he has between them, right? He's making Ricky Burns fight around it already because it's out there, but he doesn't actually land any punches. He doesn't throw any punches. He just kind of takes a step back. You know, I wonder if he's reassessing his game plan in light of getting countered with that flash. Yeah, look at how tentative he's being now. And now, interestingly enough, shooting the jab like a real jab and shooting it to the face instead, right? Not to the body. Ricky Burns doing a good job of countering or catching it, right? Same tired setup, no chance to land that against Indongo because he's seen it so many times. And kind of jumping back in with the jab, you know, maybe he'll pick up the timing and do a little better. Oh, what was that? So flashes that shot and then throws a shot around the glove. You know, not a lot of power in it. You know, let's look at what part of the glove it's landing with. Looks like it's landing with the inside, you know, kind of just slamming his fist into his head, you know. I still wouldn't let somebody do that to me, but look at how after he throws the punch, you know, it's kind of blocked, but he just moves back, right? He doesn't really control Ricky Burns, and Ricky Burns not trying to counter him either, you know, kind of is, you know, he gets like a little counter in there, you know. I guess he doesn't really. It looked like he did with his left hand, but I was so focused on Indongo's left hand that I wasn't really paying attention to it. But but he doesn't control Ricky Burns after that shot. So he's going to be really open for counters when he fights a better fighter, i.e. Terence Crawford. And again, now Burns not going for the counter, right? Remember before he landed the good jab to the face, but now figuring out a way to block the body shot because he knows it's coming, right? So making an adjustment, and we'll see if Indongo makes an adjustment now, because now that he's got his opponent bringing his hands down from the body shot, this is when he wants to be throwing headshots, right? And I had a guy in the comments asking me about setting your punches up, right? And while you don't really want to be exploding out of your guard to like set these punches up, like what he's doing, where he explodes out of his guard with the lead hand, he flashes it, and then he throws the cross really hard to the body. Like, it's a dangerous style of setting up your punches for sure, but it's better than nothing. But now he has his opponent thinking that the shot is always to the body, and that's when you really, those traps and stuff, they really start to pay dividends, is when you tell your opponent, hey, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 2, 1 + 1 is 2, and all of a sudden you change the pattern on him, right? And like using arithmetic like so literally is probably like, you know, a huge mistake, but there are probably much more clever ways to do it, right? So like, you know, I don't know, if you're playing like a video game, right? Like, oh, I pressed AA, right? Oh, he's doing AA combo. That's all he's doing, AA, and you know how to block AA, and now he goes AB, right? So right now is the time where Indongo wants to start throwing his lead, his flashing out his lead hand, and then throwing power shots to the head. You know, he probably still wants to duck down really low, you know, to make it look like a body shot. And I think he might land that body shot. It doesn't matter. The same style of technique, but he wants to still make it look like a body shot and then just come upstairs. And maybe that's what he did with that sweeping left hand that he did like about 30 seconds ago. I'm not going to analyze any of that stuff. That doesn't matter. But again, you know, this is really interesting. You know, there aren't a lot of fighters that are like in and out fighters anymore, you know, especially like on this rhythm that Indongo has, right? In, or like, I didn't even say out, but in, out, in, and then in again, right? So he like puts all his weight on his lead foot, and then he commits to a shot after, and then is able to get out. So it'll be interesting to see how Crawford handles that kind of style. I'm wondering, yeah, with the lead hand, like touching your opponent's lead hand with it, because usually you want to be set, you know, like one of the problems with the rhythm is when you're flashing it and you're bouncing back and forth and up and down, you're not always in position to punch, you know. Whereas if you have like Sergey Kovalev, like if you go back and watch that round 12 or round 2 of the first fight of my breakdown, you see Kovalev when he's probing with his lead hand, trying to get Andre Ward to make a counter. He's very set and ready to punch, and just kind of walking forward and kind of putting his lead hand out there, waiting for a response. And I think that's much, much, much harder to do when you're bouncing like this, bouncing in and out, because you have so many less opportunities to take advantage of your opponent's counter, right? Or their quote-unquote counter. But anyway, I wonder how it changes his rhythm and how Terence Crawford is going to be able to deal with it. And I personally think he'll be able to do really well with it, because it kind of makes the rhythm a little easier. And that's interesting. Leading hook, and he kind of gets countered. Yeah, pretty decent counter too, even though he gets lead foot dominance. And I guess that's part of the trap that he's trying to set, right? So before, all of the lead hands that he would throw, he would just flash it up and then throw a big left hand to the body. And now he's leading with the right hook instead, hoping that the precedent that he's set previously with just flashing it is going to allow that pattern that he's established to pay dividends in another form, in the form of the right hook. And obviously not right there, it didn't. maybe he still needs to flash the lead hand and get him to think that the right is coming, so flash it and then throw a right hook. But one of the interesting things about having a very predictable rhythm, about having a very predictable rhythm, like an in and out rhythm, is that you still control when you punch and when you don't, right? And there's this kind of like added room that you get to have, this added distance that you get to have, because your opponent kind of has to always be aware that anytime you come forward, boom, with your step or your stepping jab, that a punch might be coming too, right? So you've got this interesting like added layer of a mind game, and I'm not sure like exactly how well it works because he's still exploding out of his guard to land punches, right? But that's not bad right there. Interesting. I wonder what Indongo saw to make him so preemptively duck down and get away from that shot. Sorry, I kind of really want to figure it out. I guess he just sees him step forward. Yeah, I guess he just sees him step in with the lead probing, not probing, but the lead left hand feint. And then he just knows it's coming with the right hand. He sets up a pretty decent counter, but he just doesn't have the range for it. Kind of just hits him with his forearm instead. But not bad, Ooh, and again the same tired feint and setup of his punch, and Burns almost able to counter on it, Oh, what the fuck was I saying a second ago? Interesting. Goes to counter it a different way. Burns doesn't control him at all and almost eats a huge uppercut that splits the guard. Interesting. Yeah, so far, Indongo's showing that he's very active. He's got a couple of tricks, but so far, like, I don't want to say like a predictable set of offensive skills exactly, because the in and out, the rhythm and stuff is still, it might take a round or two to figure out, and maybe the next round will be a little bit different, but so far, I don't want to say limited in his offense, but doesn't have very many ways to get Ricky Burns out of position so that he can land clean punches. And he definitely did land some great body shots all throughout the 2 rounds that he's easily setting up with the flash of the lead hand. But you've also seen him take some counters because of that very risky style of offense, right? Because he doesn't know exactly how his opponent is going to react when he's flashing that lead hand, right? And that's the whole idea of a probe, is that you give your opponent the probe, you stick your hand out there, and you wait for them to react, and how they react determines how you counter them, right? So like in the gym, like if you're working on the mitts, your opponent or your coach has the mitts on, and he puts the left glove or the left mitt next to his face, and then throws the right mitt like he's throwing a right hand, and you counter it, right? You counter it with a left hook, right? Or you counter a right hand with another right hand, or a right uppercut, or whatever. And you practice these kinds of drills on the punch mitts, and then when you go into the ring, you probe your opponent and you make him throw those punches so that you can counter them. And that's the whole idea of setting up your punches and probing. And if you guys are interested, like I said, I can show you guys like some of these punch mitt drills, and then teach you how to set those punches up in like a live viewing thing, like with me and my friend on the camera. If you guys are interested, let me know. But so far, these first 2 rounds, Indongo showing very poor defense and a very dangerous offense, but a dangerous but explosive offense. Anyway, 50-minute video. Yeah, let me know what you guys think.